Okay, BookTube, writing community, all of those people that watch my videos, hi. Um, so I don't think I've ever told this story properly, and since I now have a 100% honesty policy on this channel, I'm just gonna rip this band-aid off. A few years ago, I started writing a book that I didn't think anyone was expecting me to write. It wasn't fantasy, it wasn't horror, it wasn't some big adventure, it was basically autofiction. It was called And We All End Here. I never finished talking about it publicly or anything because I couldn't. I've had people ask me repeatedly, what happened to that book? Why did you stop? And the honest answer is it became way too real. When I started writing it, I thought I was being clever. I changed names, I changed locations, I combined people into single characters, I altered events to make them feel more cinematic. I thought I'd disguised everything enough that it would become fiction, and it didn't. At its core, it was still my life. It was still me. And every chapter I wrote meant going back through memories I'd spent years trying not to think about. Art school, art college, was not a happy time for me. There are great memories, there were good people. I don't want to pretend that every single day was awful because it wasn't. Life is never really that simple, is it? I wasn't it wasn't a healthy period of my life towards the end. During my second year, the symptoms of depression started creeping in. I didn't know what it was at the time. I just knew I wasn't myself anymore. And by the final year, it had taken hold. My attendance had dropped, I stopped caring, everything felt really heavy. And I was surrounded by what, looking back, was really a toxic friendship group. It's funny how that when you're in your late teens and early 20s, you think people are going to be in your life forever. You think that's what friendship will look like, and some people are in my life forever. But college, 20 years later, you look back and think, no, that wasn't friendship, that was survival. There was one person in particular who was very much the ringleader of this group. I will call this person T. Recent events involving them brought back a lot of memories. And, by the way, they're not important again in any way, but because my brain has a funny habit of filing things away until someone opens a drawer. Suddenly I remember conversations I'd forgotten, arguments, moments that I'd buried, and there I was trying to write them. And that's where And We All End Here became a problem, because Ben wasn't really a character, he was me. It's a strange feeling reading a version of yourself on the page. You know every line of dialogue came from somewhere, every awkward silence, every fault, every interaction came from somewhere. And that's a very surreal experience. And I mean that. It stops being fiction, it becomes memory. Now, I want to be fair on myself because I wasn't always the good guy. There's something about writing that book, and it just taught me something. Memory has a habit of making us the hero. Writing doesn't let you get away with that. There are moments where I was completely and utterly immature, moments I handled things really badly, and moments I should have apologised, moments I was angry, and writing forced me to admit that, and it was uncomfortable. One of the biggest realisations I had was somewhere along the way, through that whole experience in art school, I stopped being myself. I put on a costume. I became whatever people expected me to be. I stopped talking. I stopped having opinions. I became incredibly quiet. One person, T, looking back, treated me like a chihuahua. Why did I say chinchilla? It's a chihuahua. That's the best way I can describe it. Not as a person, not as a human being, a fashion accessory. Something nice to have around. Someone to bring along. That's not friendship. Another person, that I will call them B, religion completely changed that friendship. They suddenly became deeply involved with Jehovah's Witness, and it caused a huge amount of tension. And I'm not going to go into that debate. about it because that's not what this video is about. I will simply say that I have an incredibly negative opinion of Jehovah's Witness based on my own experiences. I will leave that there. The strange thing about writing is that you think you're creating something. Sometimes it's creating something new. Every chapter means opening another journal, reading another diary entry, looking through old notes, trying to remember exactly what happened, trying to understand why it happened, trying to understand who I was back then. And after a while I realised I wasn't enjoying writing anymore, I was reliving it, and there's a huge difference. I made videos about this book, members only videos, they're private now, and I just couldn't watch them anymore. I couldn't deal with it. They put me back in that headspace, they put me back in that place, and I didn't want to be there. The funny thing is, I can laugh about it now. It's weird. Therapy has probably done more for helping me understand that period of life than writing ever did. But then I had undiagnosed ADHD, mix that with depression, what a combination. Your brain wants to do everything. It wants to move, it wants to create, it wants people around. At exactly the same time you want to hide. You don't answer messages, and you don't leave the house, and you don't know what's wrong with you. You know something feels broken. I understand that person far more now than I ever did when I actually was him. This year is a very strange anniversary for me. On the 16th of September, it'll be 20 years since I started college. 20. That honestly makes me feel ancient. I was 18. I thought I knew everything. I thought I knew exactly who I was. I thought I knew what adulthood looked like. I knew absolutely fucking nothing. And then I think about that last day, and it always sticks in my head. Everyone else was emotional. People were crying and hugging and taking pictures and talking about keeping in touch forever, and I remember standing there thinking it's over. That's all I felt, relief. I said goodbye to a few people. If I'm brutally honest, those goodbyes were mostly for politeness. Then I walked out, went home. And I remember thinking I never have to come back to this place again. That wasn't sadness, that was freedom. 20 years later, I don't regret college. Not for a second. If anything, I wish I'd realised sooner that not every chapter of your life deserves another page. Some stories are over, and that's okay. I still have the manuscript, the whole thing, every chapter, every word, and I'm actually really proud of it. A piece of writing I think is probably one of the most honest things I've ever written, but I can't read it. Every time I try, I'm 21 again. I'm back in those classrooms, back with those people, back feeling the way I felt back then. Maybe one day I'll be able to look at it, maybe I won't, but honestly I think it's okay if I don't. Sometimes the point of writing isn't to publish it or anything like that. Sometimes it's simply to get it out of your head, and We All End Here did exactly that. It just reminded me that some wounds don't disappear. They heal, they scar, and every now and then they still ache. And I think being honest enough to admit that is probably the healthiest thing I've ever done, because pretending they never existed is deeply unhealthy. I'm Darth James. Tell me what you think in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next one. And if you want early access and a podcast and all the fun stuff, do check out my membership options and Patreon. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.